All right, let's get back to Tobias Harris. Chris, what are your thoughts on we'll go Chris Ross and Chaz? What are your thoughts on Tobias?
So look, if this ends up, if we are accepting that you are going to take a loss, you can do a lot worse than a deal involving Tobias Harris, and whatever else comes with it, right? Like, I think they're different in how they attack, how they score, how they impact the game. But I mean, look, you gotta look at it like this. If you get Tobias, you're getting them at a fraction of the price that you would have to pay Brandon. And if you're getting similar production, no matter how it arrives, you know, are they? Is it an equal trade off? I don't think so. But we've been talking for the past few weeks now about how you're not getting an equal trade off. So if you get a guy who is, even at this stage, I think he's 31, 32 years old, motivated, by the way, with something to prove. 18 points, I think 18, 19 points per game. And that's, we're talking as a third, fourth option, some nights, depending on what Philly had out there. You get a guy that's been, that's been around, that has been in playoff series, that's been asked to do, to be a part of winning games. No, he's not going to be the second best player on your team. He's not going to, he can't even at his best replicate what Brandon did to win you a couple playoff games, but that's not what this is about. This is about the situation that you're in with Brandon Ingram. So if you're telling me that's the best that's on the board and I can re-sign him at a fraction of the cost and still, kind of pivot that way, I think you can do a lot worse.
Yeah, Ross.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I go back to Chaz's line about what's the goal? I mean, is Tobias Harris a fine NBA player? Sure, but I think I don't know why we would want unless you're talking about, and Chris said a fraction of the cost. I think what makes me nervous is that in order for you to acquire Tobias Harris, you're talking about a sign and trade situation. I don't know why Tobias Harris would agree to any sign and trade situation unless he was getting at or above market, especially to come to New Orleans, not a championship contender, things like that. So I don't see how this works because I think paying Tobias Harris, overpaying for Tobias Harris, I think is an absolute disaster. Because one, I don't want him taking any Trey Murphy minutes. I think that defeats the entire purpose of trading Brandon Ingram to bring in a Tobias Harris type player that's going to maybe ultimately steal some of Trey's minutes, especially if there's a salary associated with him that's going to require that he play a lot. Yeah, I mean, if this was I'm trying to come up with a scenario. I guess if this was a Gordon Hayward scenario where he's a free agent this summer and it's shit, man, I don't know, things went so bad for Gordon Hayward last year. Maybe you could sign him for just super cheap, the mid-level exception or a piece of the mid-level exception, some kind of small. If that's the conversation we were having for Tobias Harris, hey, I'm all for that. But that's not the conversation we're having. We're talking about him being a part of a sign and trade that would involve other things. And I don't know why Tobias Harris would agree to that in the absence of him getting paid a reasonable amount of a very reasonable amount of money, or him going somewhere that he really wants to go. I don't think either of those things exist in New Orleans. So I'm really long-winded way of saying I don't want Tobias Harris anywhere near.
Could just say that. Go ahead, Chaz.
So,
sorry, Chris. Go ahead. No, Chris. What's that?
Go ahead, Chris.
No, I was looking. I guess I was trying to see what Harrison Barnes' contract situation set up because it seems like all these different deals. You're talking about Harrison Barnes, Andrew Wiggins, Tobias Harris. It's all, they're all the same kind of player, one way or another, the same kind of situation. What's happening here?
Sorry.
I was trying to fix my.
Go back to what it would look like so Chris can see what you look like.
Nah, that's crazy. That's crazy. Nah.
Why is that crazy? Nah. Sorry.
So my question was to Ross though, does the situation change if we're talking Harrison Barnes for you, mainly because I think Harrison has one more year on his contract after this, or and Andrew Wiggins. Do you like those players as fill-ins? Like, do you like their game a little bit better than say a Tobias Harris type of situation? Or are you just strictly because you have to re-sign Tobias and you may have to give him a little bit of money? You know what I mean? Like, what's the trade-off here in regards to other options?
Yeah, I got you on live.
I don't.
And you're alive.
So I think Harrison
with the
Barnes is
hand
like 3
motions.
years and $55 million. He's got 2 years left on that, and that's kind of what I mean. Is I guess if you were talking about a situation where you had maybe like, Tobias Harris was going to sign a 2-year, $30 million deal. Well, like I probably don't balk at that. Like,
yeah,
okay, fine. Like, because it's the expectations that come with signing a 2-year, $30 million deal. That's a movable salary. That's a useful player, 6-man, whatever. Like that makes perfect sense to me. But it's the scenario that we're talking about to acquire him would have to be involved in this sign and trade. Why would he sacrifice his like freedom to choose where he wants to go, whether it's the more money, whether it's location, something like that, for a sign and trade to New Orleans, unless we were willing to overpay? So I guess
I got you.
That half answers the question. The other part is, I probably like Harrison Barnes better. I don't have the numbers in front of me. My gut tells me Harrison Barnes is a better set shooter, and I think he's a much better defender. So I would prefer Harrison Barnes in that situation. But yeah, I think it's just the situation where we would have to acquire Tobias Harris that turns me off.
I mean, he scored 9 points in the playoff series.
You can't, Brandon Ingram. Who cares?
Yeah,
Like,
I care.
But what do you? That's what I'm saying. But you're not trading for Tobias Harris to replace Brandon Ingram. That's what I don't like. You're like, even though those two people are involved in the same trade, you're in theory restructuring your roster around Zion Williamson's skill set. I don't want to bring in another Brandon Ingram. That for me defeats the entire. Like, I want him gone, not because I think Brandon's a terrible player or anything. I hate the way he plays. The way he plays does not match with the way we should be playing or with Zion Williamson on the roster. So I don't want to bring in anyone that can mimic him. Like, I'm trying to change the roster. That's part of the reason, like, Tobias Harris is kind of an isolation scorer. That's part of why I don't really want him in the first place. But like,
even if he's off the bench, because in this equation, he would be off the bench and Trey
Yeah.
Murphy would start. Like,
Right.
I don't think you're trading for Tobias to start.
No, I don't either. Unless you do it, unless it's a sign and trade where he's getting 3 years, $75 million or something like that. Then there's going to have these questions. He's going to have to play. It's just like, it's an unnecessary use of money. We've spent all this time talking about how we don't have a center on the roster. We spent all this time talking about how we need a guard that, like a playmaking guard that can like do stuff that we don't currently have on the roster. Why on earth would you commit any resources to a Tobias Harris? It's not. Again, it has nothing to do with Tobias Harris as a player. Perfectly fine player. We just don't need it. Like, he's just not a skill. He's a skill set you already have.
I think, but my point is this. So, like, we talked about his threes. He only made like 4 more threes than Brandon. And
yeah,
if that's the situation, like, why would I enable myself to basically go through the same thing again with the same type of player?